Hello there, world of tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Edward's Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be taking a deep dive into the VK7201K. Not only talking about why I think it's kind of an outclassed vehicle in the general scene of World of Tanks Blitz, but even more specifically, why it's rather confusing to me that this is a comp tank. A lot of comp teams, especially on town maps, will use this vehicle. Now, I understand to a certain extent it's a German super heavy, which has a lot of hit points and it hits hard. But to be fair, the E100 is also a German super heavy that hits just as hard, has more hit points, and in my opinion, and we're going to be proving today, has just flat better armor. So let's start off with the armor, because this is a super heavy after all, and that's the main strength that you would look at when it comes to these big German Goliaths. So if we make our way over to Armor Inspector, we can see this is the VK's armor. Now, frontally, it has a very strong lower plate, but the problem is that it's only strong against standard ammunition. Anybody loading heat shells is going to cut directly through that lower plate. It's only about 288 thick. That means that even if you were to pull out a medium like the Leopard 1 and you load premium, you're not going to struggle to penetrate it. Even angling that lower plate, you can see you have to get a pretty steep angle, about 35 degrees, before that lower plate becomes hard to pen. And even then, you still have a mid plate that, yeah, you're quite easily going to cut through. And at an angle like this, you'll just cut through the sides more than you'll actually cut through the front anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So as we can see, the frontal armor of the VK it's really not that impressive. I mean, that's kind of what it's shrouded as, is this super heavily armored frontal beast, but it really doesn't have that much frontal armor. But, to be fair, as a lot of people might point out, the E100's lower plate is also quite weak, only at about 230 millimeters thick. Even angling it, yeah, it's going to be quite easy to cut through the lower plate of an E100. So, it's not really the lower armor that's the main focus on this vehicle. The main focus is the turret and the side armor. If we take a look at the E100 turret, loading heat shells, we can see that if angled correctly, it is almost impossible even for a VK72 running calibrated shells to cut through the E100 turret. And the great thing about having a box turret like the E100 is that, let's say you're in a comp game and you've got 3 vehicles aiming at your turret. Well, what that means is that no matter who's aiming at you, as long as they're frontal, they're all going to have to load heat shells to cut through your turret unless they start getting to the side. Because let's say we have an IS-4 here, right? If there's an IS-4 at this angle, he has to load heat to penetrate your turret. If there's one in front of you, obviously this player has to load heat. And if there's one off to your side on the other, you also have to load heat. Because of this, it allows the E100 turret to actually be really solid when being fired upon at different angles. Let's compare that to the VK72. Yeah. Even frontally, I'll be honest, the VK's armor is not that incredible. You can't angle it like the E100, so you have to keep it directly facing whatever you're shooting at, and it's really not that strong. I mean, any high pen heat is very, very easily going to butter through the cheeks on the VK. It also does feature a hatch, and a quite hard to hit hatch, but it is still there. Not to mention, if you over-angle the sides of the VK even a slight amount, you can very easily cut through the side boobs. Look at the 100 side armor. You'll notice it's nearly impervious as long as you don't over-angle it, but looking at it at a side scrape, I mean, that is impervious. Compare that to the VK72, yeah, that is bad. That is really bad. Even AP ammunition is going to cut directly through the side of the tank. So it really makes me question, okay, well, it doesn't have really more frontal armor, it doesn't have more turret armor, and it doesn't have better side armor. So overall, the armor department, the VK72 is flat worse than the E100. The only situation where you're probably going to be better off in a VK72 rather than an E100 is when you're face hugging somebody and they're aiming at your vehicle like this. Then it's a rather tricky shot because the hull of the vehicle is actually quite tall, and when trying to shoot the tank in a face hug, you actually might hit the upper plate rather than hitting the turret cheeks. But that's really about it. And let's be real, in the majority of games and in comp situations, nobody's dumb enough to face hug you. They're just going to go around you, and that's what they're most likely going to do. Now, let's make our way over to the statistics of the VK. What does it have going for it there? Well, let's start off with the vehicle's gun. Unfortunately, it features the worst damage per minute for a single-shot vehicle at 2,263. That's pretty dang poor. The E100 also features very poor DPM at 2,330, but even then, it's not as low as the VK72. But I will say as an upside, the VK does feature a slightly more accurate gun, which features 0.367 dispersion rather than 0.38. To be honest, you don't really notice the difference because of the fact they're so bad on dispersion anyway. A 0.13 difference is not going to make all too much in the grand scheme of things. If we take a look at mobility, the VK72 features a top speed of 32, a reverse of 15, and a hull traverse of 27 degrees a second. However, looking at the hull traverse on paper and the power to weight is going to be a lot more beneficial if we go over to Blitz stars. So let's do that. Taking a look at the overall terrain resistances and power to weight of the E100 versus the VK72, we can see that terrain resistances are the same across all of the stats, apart from 0.1 being worse for the VK72. So they basically have the same terrain resistances. What that means is that driving on medium, soft, or hard terrain is going to be basically the same acceleration and power to weight for both of these vehicles. However, it will not be the same for traverse speed. The E100 traverses 5 degrees a second faster than the VK72 on all terrain because, as I said, their terrain resistances are all the same. So that means that the E100 is a flat 20% faster on traverse speed. That is a massive difference. 5 degrees may not sound like a lot, but that's quite a large difference, and it's the difference between a heavy tank being able to flank you and not being able to flank you. So once again, another point going for the E100. And the bad news just keeps on coming. For example, now we're going to be taking a look at the VK72's modules and where the ammo rack is located. The VK72, for a comp loadout, is running a single multi-purpose repair kit, and then it is a tungsten rounds and adrenaline. Now, I personally don't run tungsten and adrenaline on my VK because I like to fix my vehicle when modules get broken. For example, if we make our way over to Armor Inspector, we can see where all the big bad boy modules are. First of all, the engine is right in the front. That means whenever you're shot in the lower plate, you have a very high chance of your engine being absolutely knackered and possibly being lit on fire. Not only that, but that big ol' yellow bar on the back, that's the ammo rack. Yes, you heard that right, and it's not a very well armored ammo rack at only 280 hit points. What that means is that no matter what angle you are driving the VK at, unless you're using it hull down, the ammo rack is always going to be a weak spot. Just shoot literally right at the center bar where the turret lines up, and to show you a good angle of this, I'll go over to armor. Right where the turret lines up, this little center flat piece here, which we can see very easily in Blitz as well, right where that bar is, just shoot anywhere there, and you have a chance of full health ammo racking the vehicle. That is a big, big weakness. Now that we know where the ammo rack of the VK72 is located, let's actually see just how strong it is. In front of you, we have the VK with 2,912 health. We're going to aim directly where the ammo rack is, and first shell has already managed to damage the ammo rack. Well, let's put on our adrenaline and see just how quick it can go kablooey. Okay, well, the second shot did not blow it up. Each time you shoot a damaged ammo rack, you have about a 30% chance of blowing the vehicle up, so it's still not in your favor, but occasionally you will get that high roll on the die. Oh, there you go, a second damaged ammo rack. Now what that means is, let's pretend you're a VK driver, and you have used your first repair kit, and your ammo rack now gets damaged again, because somebody shot you where the ammo rack is. Well, now you're out of repair kits, because you have tungsten and adrenaline loaded, and now you have a damaged ammo rack for the rest of the game, which kind of sucks. So even without ammo racking the vehicle, and I should point out, this is a Concept 1B. It features some of the lowest module damage in the game. If this was a 60 TP or, you know, another big slapping tank, it's guaranteed that the VK would already have been racked at this point. I always find it rather funny that people try to say, don't get the 60 TP because of its bad ammo rack, yet it's really not that bad. We can see the location of the ammo rack. Once again, the yellow is sure at a spot where if you poke side on, you can shoot the vehicle, but it's not like the VK72s where it's literally the entire weak spot. As long as you drive your 60 like a smart person, you don't over-angle the sides and allow people to shoot your ammo rack, you stay frontally, you will be completely fine. There is literally no chance you'll be ammo racked. The only real spot the 60 has to worry about is the back of the turret. But I tell comp players the same thing I tell everybody that drives the 60. Don't let people get behind you. It's not that hard. As long as people aren't behind you in this tank, you'll be completely fine. Don't expose your flank. And speaking of the 60 TP, before we finish off today's video, let's compare the 60 TP to the VK72 as the final blow and nail in the coffin. As we can see, this is the 60 TP's armor profile. On flat ground, it's pretty dang strong against standard ammo. The upper plate is going to be impervious, and the turret, yeah, it's just a giant big tomato. Compared that to the VK, and the VK's not only got a massive weak lower plate, but again, those turret cheeks are very easy to penetrate. Even against heat shells, yeah, the 60 on flat ground, pretty easy to pen, but it's not any harder than that massive German lower plate, even if you try to angle this tank. Again, you just cut right through the sides. The 60, as long as you're using this vehicle hull down, the armor is absolutely incredible. The turret is nearly impervious, and the only real spot you can pen the turret is this tiny itsy bitsy hatch on the roof. So armor-wise, the 60 TP, it's just kind of flat better. There's no reason I would ever drive a VK72 when I can drive a 60 when it comes to the armor. And we're not even done. If we make our way over to compare the stats of the VK72 to the 60 TP, the truth really starts to get revealed. Sure, the 60 has a little bit less alpha at 600, but both of these vehicles carry tungsten shells, which really only gives the VK72 about 40 extra alpha even when using tungsten. So first of all, their damage per shot is very similar. The 60 TP features about 100 more DPM, which is quite nice. Not only does it feature more damage per minute, but it also features a 12% faster reload because the vehicle has less damage per shot. So it's actually quite nice. You're going to easily out-reload higher alpha tanks like the VK if you're ever in a brawl with them. When it comes to the shell velocity, slightly better. Now, you will take a look at the aiming time and dispersion and notice, yeah, it's a bit worse, but it's only 3% worse on the aiming time, 5% worse on the dispersion, and I should also point out that the on-movement dispersion on both of these tanks are exactly the same. What that means is that when you're moving these vehicles, the guns are going to be at the same dispersion values. So overall, the guns are basically the same on overall accuracy. Same gun depression, yet the 60 TP is about half the height. And mobility-wise, the 60 is just flat better. First of all, it already goes at a base top speed of 36 and the same reverse speed. However, that's not necessarily even the truth. Because if we make our way over to the Polish tech tree, and we go over to the 60 TP and provisions, you can also run improved gear oil, which not only gives you better engine power, but also increases your top and reverse speed. So I can go 4 faster in top speed, now going 40, and I can go upwards of 4 faster in reverse, meaning that I can go 19 in reverse. You can run another gear oil going an additional 2 faster in top speed and 2 in reverse, but it's not really mandatory. You already smoke the VK on power to weight, you smoke the VK on overall really everything when it comes to mobility, and again, 40% better traverse. I mean, is there much more I really need to say? Plus, the 60 is a lot lower down, so it's got better camouflage. The only real downside of the 60 is that it has quite a bit less hit points than the E100, sitting at around, or not the E100, sorry, the VK72, sitting at around 2,650 compared to the VK72's 2,850-ish. So it does have less health, I will say that. But apart from the health, there's really not much going for the VK72. A lot of people in comp and even pubs think it's a great tank, and it does have its moments when it can be nice. Its HE slaps really dang hard, and in a face hug, the VK can be a good vehicle. I don't necessarily think it's the worst choice of a heavy for comp. I think there are definitely worse choices, like I made a video crapping on the E5, but there's just better options. Not only do I think the E100 is just a better option in general, because you're not only going to be running repair kits, but it's just got better armor, but the 60 TP has that tungsten alpha, which also kind of defeats the purpose. Either way, I just don't really see a purpose to the VK72. It would be nice if we're giving buffed its side armor. I think that would be a really nice thing to do for the tank, but oh well. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and if you'd like to see more like it, let me know what you guys feel about this in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.